Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, boxing and MMA fans from around the world. Introducing from Bassett, California, the third man in the ring, Popeye Ray.
Hey, welcome to Third Man in the Ring. I'm your host, Popeye Ray. Today we have an awesome interview with Chris Leben. Hey, MMA, Ultimate Fighter, World Champion. I want you guys to give him a warm welcome, Chris Leben. How you doing, Chris?
Doing well.
Thank you for having
Doing
me.
well. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is his beautiful gym, fans. San Diego.
Yeah.
So Chris, how's life treating you, man?
No complaints, man. No complaints. Busy. You know, the between my son and the gym, you know, reffing and judging. Yeah, I'm a busy man. A lot of blessings.
There you go. So tell the fans a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up. And let me interrupt you real quick. Guys, you really want to, this is a little bit of a tearjerker. Get his book, guys. I bought mine on Amazon, The Crippler. Let me tell you, this is an awesome book, and I'm in chapter 3 right now. But if you really want to know about Chris more than this interview, get his book on Amazon, guys. But real quick here, this is Chris's gym. But again, Chris, tell the fans where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, an area in Portland they call Felony Flats, kind of 52nd and Flayville area. You know, just a low income. Yeah. You know, a lot of methamphetamines, a lot of white trash, a lot of you know, and you know, single mother. You know, she raised me, my brother, then my little sister came later, but you know, she did her best with the tools that she had. Yeah. You know, spent a lot of years being mad at her, you know, for the way I was brought up and what I had to go through growing up. But as I got older, I realized that, you know what, she didn't have a lot either. She wasn't given a lot, and
with
you know,
the tools that she had.
With the tools that she had, you know, she kept us alive. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
you know what I mean. So we're all still here. So, you know, yeah.
So growing up, even though I don't want to tell your book, but getting into trouble and stuff, how did you get into the sport, or how did it evolve to this? Considering the ups and downs, you know.
You know, it's kind of weird. I think fighting was always kind of a calling for me. I did all sorts of.
Should I say?
Well, you know, part of the way you grow up, you know, there was a lot of fighting in my childhood. You know, obviously, I think most fighters have a similar story. We didn't get here because we were great. We were A students and
choir boys.
You know, came from a great household. You know, usually, like anybody that walks in this gym, anytime I get a kid that walks in my gym and they tell me they want to be a fighter, and I go, so you want to risk getting the shit kicked out of you in front of your friends, family, and if you're lucky, you can do that on national TV. Yeah. You know, there's something there. There's always something there, and ultimately, you know, for me as it is for the people that walk in the door, it kind of is the best form of therapy that there is. Yeah. You know, for a lot of troubled youth, and it certainly was for me. You know, I started boxing in middle school. Why, I don't know. All my friends were skateboarders, you know, but I catch the bus across town to the rec center, you know, to box every day. Then when I got in high school, I mean, it's kind of a funny story. I was walking down the hallway freshman year, and this jock tripped me in front of these girls.
Oh.
You know.
Is that a mistake?
Yeah, well, yeah, I wasn't happy about it. So, long story short, you know, I found out he wrestled. The next day I went and joined the wrestling team. They were just starting. And then my sophomore year, when he was a senior, I beat him for his varsity spot, and you know, that was that. You know that.
I'm actually in that chapter right now.
Yeah, you know, it was purely spite that got me to start wrestling. You know, and in my story, a lot of drive and motivation that I had as a youth was was spite. You know, I think a lot of people, and I couldn't.
Frustration, anger.
Yeah, you know, I grew up. I was always, you know, poor. I didn't have clothes like the other kids. I couldn't read or write, you know, in high school. Very dyslexic. Teachers kind of told me I would never be able to read or write, which is funny because, you know, a few years later after high school, MySpace came out and I figured out how to read real quick. Talking to girls, trying to meet girls, all of a sudden.
Right? Trying to be a player, right?
Don't want to sound stupid, you know. You start learning how to read and write. So I figured it out, and I mean, my spelling is not good now. I read just fine though. You know, I read quite a bit, and you know, the whole drive, you know, through high school with wrestling was, you know, I don't think anybody expected me to graduate high school. Nobody in my family ever had. You know,
was it surprising to even you
that I graduated? Yeah, and I wouldn't have graduated if it wasn't for the wrestling team. If it wasn't.
Was that part of the
being
how
part?
do they say the rules? You had to have a C average to keep wrestling.
You had to pass. Yeah, you had to pass your classes, and you had to show up to school. You know, and that's the only thing that kept me passing, showing up, was I was part of a team, and the camaraderie, the friendships that I built then. Some of my friends from high school, some of the wrestling people in high school, I still stay in touch with. You know.
Now, mind you, not to give too much of this great book, but I'm a lot older than you. Was MMA, Ultimate Fighting, still around? Was it around at that time of your high school days? UFC, any of that? Was it even?
Yeah. I remember.
So
when
it was a thought there, or
the thought. I was a fan of the UFC since middle school. I remember 1994.
When they didn't have any weight.
I think it was when the UFC first came out. You know, and I remember watching that with my friends and being like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then you know, boxing, wrestling through high school. You know, and after high school. Brief stint in the military. I don't know if you read that in the book, but long story short, my brother called me one day and he said, dude, I'm selling cars at this car lot, and Randy Couture and Matt Lindland are kicking the shit out of each other in the garage.
Wow.
And Randy,
big names there.
Randy at the time was the UFC champion, so of course I knew who he was, and I knew he was from the
late 80s, early 90s, right?
Yeah, 90s, yeah. Well, this actually might have been 2000, 2001.
Okay.
2001 now, yeah. Yeah, so I said, what? I'm on my way, you know, and I immediately sped down there. I think it was called Matt Lindland's USA Auto Wholesale. It was on 181st and Stark. And that was the original Team Quest. It's still there to this day. Matt Lindland's still teaching classes there, and it's still going. And originally, you know, it was just a wrestling mat in the garage, you know, with sheetrock. There were holes in the sheetrock where everybody's heads had kind of gone through the wall. Yeah. And that's where they were training. That's where Randy was training for the UFC. You know, I met my coach Robert Follis, and I signed up that day. And then every day after that, I was back, you know. And again, I think. Did
you have a fight prior to your Ultimate Fight, the Ultimate Fighter show?
I had no professional fight, no sanctioned fights. Sure, I'd been in plenty of fights.
They actually had underground fights in those days too, right?
Back in those days, sure, yeah. And I mean, and even the ones that were. Above water, organized events were still illegal, you know. Yeah. Fighting in California at that time was still completely illegal, and Oregon was just starting to legalize some stuff. Chael Sonnen, actually one of my training partners, was a big part of that, you know.
So Chris is one of our pioneers then?
Yeah, well, I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess so, yeah.
The OGs, as we call them.
And so, you know, and I remember, you know, from that point, you know, I had something that I thought could set me apart, you know. So every day I came in, my coach Robert Falls would say, "Hey Chris, how you doing?" I said, "Did you give me a fight yet?" So you give me a fight yet? So I think I'd only been training maybe 6 months. You know, of course I had some wrestling and boxing, but But MMA specifically, maybe 6 months by the time I got my first fight.
What weight were you fighting at that time?
That first fight was at 205 pounds.
Okay.
So I got fat. I got out of high school, started drinking and partying, and put on a bunch of weight after wrestling, like a lot of wrestlers do. You know, so then I started training. I came down, I fought one fight at 205, and then after there I kind of settled in at 185 pounds.
Yeah, that's still some big boys there, man.
I mean, yeah.
That's some big boys.
Yeah, especially nowadays. You look at those middleweights and, you know, they're all 6'2", 6'4", you know, they're big guys.
And I was reading in your book, the first, at least in the book, the first big shot for you was the call for the Ultimate Fighter, right?
Well, at that time I had I think maybe 14 fights going into the Ultimate Fighter, and I had won every fight up until I fought a guy named Joe Dirksen. I lost a decision against Joe Dirksen. He was in the UFC for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I rang a bell.
You know, but nonetheless, it was a great fight. I beat Mike Swick for the inaugural WEC belt. You know, so that first season of the Ultimate Fighter, most of the guys that they selected were kind of already on the UFC's radar. Mm-hmm. You know, and not to mention, it helped that my coach was Randy Couture. So Randy Couture, he was also the coach for that first season. You know, and I remember he told me, he said, "Hey, I can't tell you much, but I want you to make a video and send it in for this TV show about yourself." So I made a quick video, mailed it in. Next thing I know, I was in Las Vegas for the tryouts.
Oh, all right.
And that's kind of a funny story. You know, they had a week of stuff planned for the tryouts, and our first audition was kind of just like this. They brought you in a room, they sat you down in front of a camera, and they said, "All right, we want you to take 10 minutes and just tell us why you think you should be on the Ultimate Fighter." So a 21, 22-year-old Chris Leben was, you know, I was pretty confident. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, that's a nice way of putting.
Not cocky, but confident.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was a cocky asshole, okay? Yeah, that's the truth.
I wanted him to say it, not me, because I want to get socked up.
That's the truth. So I started telling him why I should be on the show, and maybe 5 minutes into me talking, the side door of this hotel room we're filming in opens, and here comes Dana White and a guy named Craig Peligian, who was the head producer of the show. They come running in, and they're just cracking up laughing. They're like, "That's it, buddy. You're on the show. We need this guy. We're gonna get this guy." So that was it, man.
And that's when I got the first sight of Chris. I go, "Oh, wow," you know what I mean? Because when that show started, I was hooked on it. Me and my boys. I have 5 sons. We were just hooked on it. But yeah, that's when I got my first look at you. I said, "Oh, this guy's a fool, Wade." Hate to run into him in a bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, I was a little rough around the edges. Yeah. That's for sure, you know. And
just a little bit?
You know, and it's funny because, you know, I peed on that kid's bed, and you know, the way I was getting drunk on the show, and, you know, the other guys like, I don't know why, you know, you go back and you watch it and you see the other guys going, this is the biggest opportunity of his life, and he's getting loaded. And, you know, at the time, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the way I was behaving. I mean, that's the way my whole family behaved. You know what I'm saying?
And again, excuse me to interrupt. This is why when I read his book, it amazed me how he admitted how his training ethic was, and you still performed. You still performed. And like he said, I didn't think nothing of it. I thought all the fighters did it, you know?
You know, a lot of people ask, you know, but again, it was, for me, a big part of my drive was nobody ever expected anything out of me. Society, my family, my teachers.
How about you, Chris? Did you think?
Well, I didn't think. I just wanted to fuck them. Fuck them. You know what I mean? So.
And you lived pretty much day for day at that time.
Day for day. So for, you know, on the Ultimate Fighter, we had a run. Yeah. You know, that Randy had designed that everybody was supposed to fail. You know, it was 5 minutes, 5 miles an hour, 5 minutes at 6, 5 minutes, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles an hour for 5 minutes. And I think I drank a bottle of whiskey, and then was the only guy to finish the run the next day, you know? And it wasn't cardio, that's for sure. There were a lot of guys in a lot better shape than me. It was just spite. It was pure spite. I mean, Dana White was standing there while I was on the treadmill. You know, I was gonna die before I was gonna give up, you know? And you know, so when I look back, people go, God, you know, you were getting loaded and you know, and you still performed, you know, like how do you think you would have done if you wouldn't have been drinking and partying? And my answer is, you know what, I don't know. I don't know, because a lot of that fucked up place in my head where I was at that time in my life, and the drive that I got from that, you know, and the way that I fought, a little bit of reckless abandon, you know. I think if I would have been, you know, clear-headed and collective, you know, a lot of those variables would have changed. That's right. And the answer is, my technique have been better, probably. My cardio have been better, sure. Would I perform better? I don't know. Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
We can all play Monday morning quarterback and say, yeah.
There you go. You know, my view is, you know, now is everything happens for a reason. You know, I went through that, you know, for a long period. My life was extreme highs and extreme lows. You know what I mean? I was winning a fight and I was partying or whatever, or I was losing a fight. I was extremely hungover. You know, there was no middle of the road for me whatsoever. It was like this. I lived like that, and it was torture. I lived like that for a long time. But in hindsight, it puts me in kind of a special position today. You know, I have this gym.
Beautiful gym.
You know, I have a whole bunch of young fighters that seek me out and come in to train with me. You know, and as a coach, I'm sure you understand that as a coach, not only do we coach them on their technical ability, but especially when you're dealing with a lot of 20-year-olds, you got to coach them. You know,
life. Yeah.
A lot of these kids need some life skills that you know. Right. So they, you know, they don't listen to mom, they don't listen to dad, they listen to their tattooed coach that says fuck every once in a while, you know, and they know that they can relate, you know. People tend to open up to me a little bit more about their stuff. Maybe they've read the book, maybe they haven't, but they go, what I'm going through, he's probably been through twice as bad. So they're not embarrassed to you know, talk to me about what's going on.
That's right.
And that's, you know, what I went through, it's put me in a position now where hopefully I can relate and mentor, you know, and help these kids. And not just with my fight team, but, you know, it's pretty common. I'm very active in recovery. I think most people know that. You know, I've been sober a little over 5 years now, and you know, and so a big part of my life outside of the gym is working with other alcoholics and people that struggle with addiction. You know, and it's kind of the same thing there too, where they listen to me and
you know what, fans, that says a lot about Chris. Some I won't say no names. Some go forward and they don't look back. But that says a lot about Chris to, you know what, I'm going to help that dude. I'm going to go to and talk to him about addiction. That says a lot about, you know, not to blow smoke, bro. Thank you, you know what I mean? Thank you, I appreciate that. You might be saving somebody on the street there, you know what I mean?
I hope so. You know, there's a lot of guys that I sponsor and I work with, and the way that I look at it is it keeps me sober. Yeah. There's nothing like, you know, somebody that's trying to shake it, that's going through the ringer, that's sick, and they're reaching out for help. And when you sit down and you talk to one of those guys, you remember, fuck.
And who better to know than somebody
that shit was lame. I never want to be there again.
Exactly.
You know, so not only do I get to help somebody else, but I get to help myself. It keeps me on the right track because I'm continually reminded of what it was like.
Thank you to HTC Construction in Ontario, California. They're a national leader in commercial construction with a proven track record of expertise in cold storage solutions and epoxy flooring. Their team works closely with you to efficiently meet all compliance standards while maintaining budget commitments and completing projects on time. HTC Construction works with Fortune 500 companies and small businesses throughout the country in the areas of steel stud framing, refrigeration panels, dock doors, comprehensive drain systems, fire sprinklers, block walls, and much more. For bids, quotes, or a free consultation, call 909-626-0214 or visit their website at www.hdconstruction.com. Ralph Sarabia and his wife Jody Sarabia are the founders of Putazos. They started Putazos to reach the veteran community who is currently losing 22 vets a day to suicide. Ralph and his unit, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, lost over 15 guys while serving in Iraq. He wanted to share with you that whether you fight physical or mental battles, it ain't over yet. With that said, Putazos has developed high-end boxing gloves that have been approved by State Athletic Commission to be in pro fights. If you want a boxing glove that's inspired by patriotism and is battle-tested, check them out at putazosfightapparel.com. And just keep in mind that a portion of Putazos proceeds will go to the Semper Fi Fund, which helps wounded warriors. Also, we want to give another shout out to Valley Mission Builders. Valley Mission Builders is a general building company with over 3 generations of construction experience. They specialize in all phases of home construction, new home building, remodeling, room additions, and ADU and guest units. They can assist with planning and designing to complete construction. They service the greater Los Angeles area and Ventura counties, including the San Fernando Valley. Give Valley Mission Builders a call for a free consultation.
Well, you know what, Chris? I have a couple of questions that I'm sure the fans want to know.
Sure.
What biggest fight stands out in your fight career? We still got to go to bare knuckle, but in UFC, mixed martial arts.
So there's a few, you know. Obviously, the cliche answer is every fight is your biggest fight.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a few fights that I took that I expected to lose. And Vanderlei Silva was one of them. You know, Vanderlei.
Oh, I think I seen that one.
Vanderlei Silva was my hero. He's probably my favorite fighter of all time.
Yes, great.
And I asked Dana for years for that fight. You know, and Dana's like, "You're not fighting Vanderlei." I remember him specifically saying that. Then, long story short, Vanderlei was supposed to fight Akiyama. I stepped in last minute, fought Akiyama on 2 weeks' notice, won. And then I said, "Dana, you got to give me the Vanderlei fight now." And I remember I was driving in my car, and he called me. He said,
"Did Vanderlei know of this request?"
I don't know if Vanderlei knew. I don't know if he knew, but I remember. Dana called me, and I was in Hawaii. I was driving my truck, and he said, the first thing he said was, "Hey, be careful what you wish for, kid." You know, and I was like, he said you're fighting Vanderlei. I said, "That's great." And I hung up the phone, and then I went, "What the fuck did I do?
Oh.
You know, what did I do? Why would I choose to do this to myself? You know?"
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get choked up thinking about it. You know, it's you know, so. Yeah, I think I trained harder for that fight. Fear, it's very motivating.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And, you know, you can argue whether or not he's the best fighter in the world, but I will say he's in my top 5 for scariest fighters in the world. Yeah. He might not be the GOAT of all time, but as far as the scariest fighters you can face.
He's a mean-looking dude.
You know, you're going to fight like a Damian Maia or something, all right, you know, I'm going to get twisted up. You know what I mean? But Vanderlei hurts you. You know what I mean? He's a scary dude, especially at that time. So
you obviously studied him.
Yeah.
You obviously seen him. You obviously said,
"Yeah,
I want that."
Yes.
Challenge, obviously, you know.
Yeah, and I wanted to fight my hero. You know what I mean? I remember when I was young, when I first started fighting, and I was fighting amateur. I would go. There was in Portland, Oregon. There was a Japanese toy store, and this guy would bootleg the Prides off of Sky Perfect TV in Japan. So his friends in Japan would order the pay-per-view.
Is the Pride still around?
Pride. Well, it's now not anymore. It's One FC. It's okay. One FC is kind of the big show in Asia, and a lot of the people that were part of Pride have kind of switched over.
I remember watching that as well.
Yeah.
So that one sticks out with you then, huh?
Yeah, that was a big win. That was a really big win.
And we can go on YouTube, fans, to watch these fights as well, right?
Yeah. There's a couple fights in my amateur career too that probably not everybody has seen. You know, there's a guy named Otto Olsen. I thought for sure I was going to lose that one. This guy took
So
second.
Chris, let me be a little sarcastic. Why would you take it if you think you might lose? Is it just the challenge in spite again?
That's
is that what it is?
That's
all
it.
about?
That's it. Yeah.
I'm gonna take it to the next level, and I don't care.
Yeah. Hey, listen. If you think you're gonna win, you know what I mean.
Probably lost already, right?
If you know exactly. Yeah. There you go. There's that aspect, but there's what else is there than overcoming all odds?
Yeah.
To achieve an amazing goal.
I have my 5 sons, and I've always raised them with this little phrase. I hate losing more than I like winning. It's like contradiction.
No, I get it.
I hate losing more than I like winning. So
that is so true.
You know
it's so true, and it's something I kind of try to stress on my kid, because public school, California, you know what I mean? We win, everybody wins. They go play t-ball.
Thank you.
Both teams win, they shake hands. Well, guess
Everybody
what?
gets a trophy.
Guess what? That's not the real world.
That's right.
That's not how life actually works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you can't lose. What I'm saying is whether you win or lose, what worked, what didn't work, what needs improvement.
And losing builds character.
Losing,
as well as winning does.
Yeah, you got to get back on the horse.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we've seen it. There's fighters I've seen that they win, and then they lose two. They're never the same. They're never able to regain what they had. So losing is a huge part of growth.
Yes.
It fucking sucks.
Don't it?
You know what I mean? And if you put every ounce in, it hurts. It hurts when you lose. The only thing that hurts worse than that is not putting everything in, going out and losing and wondering, could I have beat this guy? Was this guy better than me?
And that goes to your training. If you knew you didn't train right, then it's your own fault.
That's it.
It's your own fault. But if you knew you trained right, well, you know what? I just had a bad day that day, and I'm going to get back on the mat, get back in the ring.
And that's how I've always looked at my losses is I completely discard everything the other guy did when I look at a fight. I discard everything that he did right, and I only focus on what I did wrong and what I could have done better. Because that guy being a great fighter, listen, we're in the UFC. That's right. Everybody's a great fighter. Everybody's gonna do amazing things. My job is not what he does. My job is what I do.
That's right. And my trainer, Ben Lira, who trains my son, don't worry about what he does. Worry about what you do.
That's right. That's right.
He can be a lefty, righty. Well, that's in boxing, but his game obviously can be jiu-jitsu, and yours might be stand-up or vice versa. Don't worry about what he's doing. What are you doing?
That's something I run into with some of my younger guys too. They want to watch so much tape and study their fighter so much, and I tell them, say, listen, man, this isn't football. You know what I mean? I watch tape on the guy I'm going to fight one time. I have my coach watch it first. I sit down with my coach, and I just be the dumb fighter my entire career. Even when, after my UFC burnout, same thing. I see what they see. I take those notes on those particular things, and then I focus on what I'm going to do, right? Because fighting is about imposing your will on your opponent,
right?
Not about reacting to what they're going to do. Yeah. If you watch too much tape and you study your opponent too much, you're going to be trying to react. And if you're trying to react,
fighting defense,
you're a step behind them. They're the one dictating what happens in the pace.
And again, not to blow smoke, I loved your hands.
Well, thank you.
I dug, when I seen you fight, I dug. That's what made me a big fan of you, is your hands. I love stand-up, bro. And
thank you.
Awesome stand-up, bro. Awesome stand-up.
Yeah. It's funny.
That's obviously was from the boxing, right?
Well, no. I mean, I did some boxing, but I wasn't. I didn't have a bunch of like USA boxing fights or anything like that. Definitely, a lot of hard sparring rounds in the gym and whatnot. But I mean, my first, several fights, I was announced as a wrestler. I had done a lot more in wrestling. In high school wrestling, I'd done pretty well, and my first 4 fights I won by submission. And then I knocked somebody out. And as soon as and there's no comparison in my book.
Yeah.
Like arm barring a guy and then he taps, you know, that like is not the same as like draining the life out of somebody. So once I had that first knockout, I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to knock everybody out.
And another question.
And that became my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question, Chris. If you had to make a comeback, and mind you, we're going to get to that. You know, Chris is a professional referee in MMA now, and congrats to that. But if you had to make a comeback today, who would be the guy you'd like to fight?
Oh man.
Even if you throw out a couple of names, who would you like to see yourself against? You know what I mean?
Well,
that's a stacked weight class too. 205, 185, 190.
Yeah. There's a lot of great guys, and honestly, you know, from the time that I was in the UFC to now, the sport has developed so much, and you can either. A lot of people hate on it. You know, they go, "Oh, I loved it in the old days when you fought, and you guys went out there just slugging it out, trying to win." Nowadays, a lot of guys fight to not lose, but it really is a cat and mouse game now, where everybody's so dangerous. They have to be so much more tentative. You can't.
You heard it from the horse's mouth.
You can't just open up and go wide open nowadays, like I got away with in several. I mean, my first 5 fights I got away with it. Then I ran into Anderson Silva, and I realized I had to.
That one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it didn't work out good for me. I was Anderson's first fight in the UFC, and you know, and I realized like, wow, you can't go wide open with everybody anymore. But anyway, my point is, you know, it's a different game, and I don't spend time thinking about it. You know.
Okay.
People, you know, how would you do if you fought this guy? Do you think you'd buy that? You know what? I haven't fought him, so I don't know. I don't know.
Think about him.
I don't even, you know, I never did fight him, so I don't know. You know, would you like to you know, 2 guys fight and 1 guy wins? That's the way it is. Unless they rematch, you know, that's the way it is. It doesn't matter if you had a bad night and they had a good night, or vice versa. You know, our sport is defined by W's and L's, you know, and on Saturday night, that's all that matters, you know, and until Saturday night, nobody knows.
Yeah, that's what all the training and working out is all about.
That's it.
Just wait till Saturday.
Wait till Saturday.
Hey, Chris, well, when did you know that's it? When did you say, I'm done? Did somebody tell you? Did you just feel in your heart it's time to hang it up, and did it hurt?
Well, it's kind of interesting. My UFC career did not end the way that I wanted to end. You know, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I was, you know, struggling with alcohol and a relationship and everything else. And you know, I'd been in the UFC for a decade at that time, and
did you have your son yet?
Not yet, no. And I was just kind of going through the motions, you know, and I just didn't care much. You know, I lost the drive. And my last fight, I finished the fight on the stool. So that means I didn't come out to answer that third bell. I didn't come out. He hadn't finished me. I had plenty of fight left in me, but my heart wasn't in it, and so I retired after that. That haunted me. It haunted me for many years because, as people know, kind of, if you fought Chris Leben, it was kind of like you know, you might beat him, but you're going to know you were in a fight.
That's right.
You know, I'm not saying that I beat everybody or was the best guy, but
you always brought it. Your fights were exciting, bro.
And I was going for broke. I was going to die before I let you
see that.
Before I let you finish me. And my last fight, because of alcohol and other things, I finished it on the stool in the UFC. So fast forward a little bit. I got sober. And, you know, I was working at a gym, and next thing I know, I was really enjoying training again. So I was training with the team, and I was beating up all the 20-year-olds in the gym, and these are good 20-year-olds, you know? You know, I was like, fuck, I'm feeling pretty good. And that's about the time I got a call from Bare Knuckle, you know? And
That's some crazy stuff right there.
yeah, you know, they told me.
When I actually watch that, my blood starts rising, man.
Yeah.
It's like I'm watching a
Street fight. Yeah, you know, so they said, hey, you know, we'd love to have you come fight for us. And I was like, I'm not, you know, but this time there had been 2 shows in the country so far. And I was like, I don't know about that. You know, I kind of heard about it, seen a little bit on YouTube. I was like, I'm an MMA guy, you know? And then that night I went online and I started watching some of the fights. I'm like, small ring, hands only, like nowhere to run. Like,
and again, I love your hands.
This sport was made for me, you know? So I called him back and I said, let's do it, you know? Ultimately, I had 4 bare knuckle fights. 3 of those fights were first round knockouts. And one fight, the fight that I lost, was a 5-round war, you know? And you know, there's a lot of things leading up to the fight, whatever. Doesn't matter. Like I said earlier, only thing that matters is Saturday night, right? But this is what's important to me. That guy went out, the guy broke my orbital in the first minute of the first round. At the end of that fight, I had like 36 stitches here, 20 something here. They had to stitch my nose back on. My whole cheek was smashed in. You know, a lot of that, but the thing was, I fought all 5 rounds of that fight. I fought from the start bell to the finish bell, you know? So even though my last fight I was able to win, which was great, you know, I finished my career on a knockout, talk about that, but that was the one that for me I take more pride in. Because not that you can never right a wrong.
Yeah.
Right, but it let me know that, hey, that guy that quit on the stool, that wasn't you. That was the alcohol and everything else you were doing. You are the guy that had his orbital broken and fought a war for 5 rounds and then went to the hospital afterward. You know, I could have quit at any time in that fight and I didn't. So that kind of...
yeah, I mean, even us as fans could say, you had that great career in the UFC. Why keep going, Chris? But in spite again.
Well, yeah, you know, and I had some stuff left to prove. And not really to anybody else, because I'd had plenty of fights, but yeah, it was after that last fight, the way that my career ended. My last couple of fights were just not me. They were not me. So, you know, I wanted to prove to myself that wasn't me, and I did that. You know, so after that fight, I told them I'm good, I'm done. They kept calling me. They said one more. I said, all right, I'll do one last one. You know, they said pick any opponent. So, you know, the guy I picked was undefeated in bare knuckle. You know, was going up a weight class.
There you go, Chris. He could have picked anybody, but he picks the undefeated guy.
Yeah, because.
Again, you just wanted to prove to yourself.
This kid is wide open, you know. Yeah. He's a live by the sword, die by the sword slugger, you know. And I was like, that.
Go out on your shield.
That'll make an exciting fight.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. And I said, I'm either going to go out on my shield or, you know, or it'll be glorious, you know. That's the only way to do it, you know. So.
Real quick, did your mom watch these fights?
My mom has watched a few of my fights, usually after. She might watch them after she knows I won. Yeah.
And to kind of change the subject a little bit, I had many fathers. None of them really cared about me, and it really felt connected when you were talking about your father in that first chapter. Man, that, you know, guys, a lot. I'm telling you, as parents, I'm sure you agree as well, but us with our kids, we need to be there for their sports. And I felt it when you said that the ultimate fight, you looked in the stands to see if your dad was there. He wasn't even there.
So the empty chair was there.
The empty chair was there, you know?
Yeah.
But your brother was there.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine how that felt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was pretty upset, you know, and at the time I didn't know how to manage it, you know.
And obviously it was with the alcohol
Because
and partying.
I didn't meet my dad until we were actually trying out for that first season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Las Vegas, right?
Yeah. My mother had somehow tracked him down after my brother overdosed to try to talk to my brother, and so he got my number and he called me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm looking over at the Luxor in Mandalay Bay." And he said, "Oh, what are you looking at, a magazine?" I said, "No, I'm looking out my window." He said, "Oh, you're in Vegas? I live in Vegas." So met him at the bar at the MGM. We were supposed to be in our rooms, but Ed Herman, who was one of my best friends, was also trying out for the show. Long time UFC career. He might have had the longest UFC career ever. But we snuck down. We met my dad for a beer.
That's right. You guys weren't supposed to leave.
Yeah, so we snuck down. And it was funny because it's weird, you know, even though I never knew this guy my whole life, within talking to him for 5 minutes, I knew that he was my father for sure, you know. And then he borrowed $100 from me and left.
Yeah. And you know what, Chris, I'm gonna get a little personal here, and you had a near-death experience, huh? Can you tell the fans a little bit about that?
Listen, here's what happened. You know, I got COVID. I got COVID, and I had COVID once before. I wasn't vaccinated. I don't care which way you go, which way you go on that. It does not matter to me. But the first time I beat it, no problem. I was like, well, there's just no need to get vaccinated at this point.
We want to also thank our friends at CalStar Roofing. CalStar Roofing specializes in residential roofing, installing concrete roofing tiles, and composition asphalt shingles. They have been serving the Inland Empire for over 31 years. Call on CalStar Roofing for all of your roofing needs. Thank our friends at CJ Smiles. CJ Smiles is an organization that supports families dealing with childhood cancer by providing financial support and gifts with the hope of putting a smile to children with fighting cancer. CJ Smiles started in memory of CJ Jafasi, who was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma in 2019. CJ loved to laugh, tell jokes, play soccer, and video games. He had the best smile. For 2.5 years, he battled cancer with chemotherapy, radiation, multiple procedures, extensive hospital stays, and had relapsed twice. CJ gained his angel wings at the age of 10 years old. This sponsor, when it came in, it pulled some heartstrings, I have to admit. I'm an oncology nurse, and this one hit home. So again, it pulled my heartstrings, and I really want to thank you guys for your support and what you do in the community.
So I took all the stuff you're supposed to take, the ivermectin and everything, and I continued to sit in my sauna and sweat at home, beat it, tested negative, did a camo show, went back to the gym down here, and I was training my friend Tommy in the morning, and I just couldn't catch my breath, you know? He's like, dude, you gotta go to the hospital, bro. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't, you know, I just couldn't catch my breath. So I went to urgent care, and they took a look at me and they said, oh, you need to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and they were like, oh, you need to go to ICU. You know, and I'm going like, what the fuck, what is going on, you know? And, you know, basically what, then while I was in the hospital, it progressed substantially. So what it had caused me to get ammonia in my lungs. The ammonia swole up, which caused all this pressure around my heart, which caused my heart to go into AFib, which ultimately caused my kidney and livers to shut down.
Wow.
And my lungs shut down. So
and mind you, the boss had thoughts and prayers for you, because during that time he had mentioned to us, Chris is in the hospital.
Yeah, I got really bad. My lungs failed completely. I got ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. So my heart, my lungs, my kidney, my liver, I was septic. Everything shut down on me, and they were like, listen, you know, and I'm asking my doctor. I still see him, actually, my cardiologist, and I said, what are the chances I'm going to live, doc? And he said, well, I'm cautiously optimistic, you know? And I was like,
you don't know how to take that one.
So I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, all right, 4 organ failure, you know, what are my chances, you know? And it was, you know, somewhere between 1 in 250 and 1 in 400 chance that I'm going to pull out of this. depending on who you talk to. Ultimately, I went on a respirator. They put me on a respirator. It's very interesting because you make that last text. I sent out that last text and said my goodbyes, and you're sober. You're dead sober when they put you under, and that odds are you're not coming back off that respirator. You know that that's the last thing you're going to see. So
the word was amongst the officials, it was looking bad for you.
It was bad. It was bad. There was nobody that saw me in the hospital, none of my friends, anybody that went and visited me. There's nobody that hasn't reminded me multiple times, you should be dead. I saw how sick you were, and me being inside my body, I thought there was no way that a body could be as sick as mine and live. Like, I really felt there was zero chance. People say this, they say, you're so strong, you're a fighter, and I told them, listen, that's bullshit, man. There's only so much pain the human body and brain can take, and I was, it's very, they got this mask on me, and it's pressurized, pure oxygen, and I still can't breathe. My blood oxygen is at 80, 70, so I'm literally suffocating, very anxiety, I just said, God.
It was that time, huh?
Yeah, no, and it's not fear dying. Like there's a lot, my son, fear of leaving my son for sure, but we all die, and I did, I said a prayer with my friend. I said, God, if do with me what you will, and then they put me under, and the weird thing is when I was under, right? You're supposed to be in a coma.
Yeah.
The ICU nurse says she's never seen anything like this before, but my friend I was able to write with my left hand. They were putting paper, so you're restrained to the bed because they don't want you to move and pull the tubes out or something. You got all these tubes down your throat and down my neck, and so you're shackled and handcuffed, basically, right? But they were put, and I remember, that I could bubble up to the surface and kind of hear the room. I couldn't speak or anything, but the last thing I wrote was, call Tommy, tell him to say a prayer, and
that's heavy.
And they put him on speaker, and he said that, and then I was like, well, then I just kind of fell back into into just black, and then a few days later, like my buddy said, it was he was in the room, so he said it was a miracle. He said as soon as that happened, your blood oxygen started going up. They called in the doctor, and they were like, wow, look at his numbers are looking really great. And then an hour later, they were like, I think we could take him off the respirator and wake him back up. So it was kind of.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah, it was, I don't want to say miracle, but,
I'll say it.
Something happened there, and somehow, it came back out.
It gives you a little sense of life after, no?
Yeah, well, yeah.
When you finally woke up?
You're the most alive when you're closest to death.
Yeah.
Because that's when you value and you feel that life energy. Sometimes we forget about it in our day-to-day, and I think that was a problem. I think that's part of what got me sick initially was I was overworking myself. I was in here from 6 a.m. till 8 o'clock at night, and I was just trying to grind, and I wasn't living my life. I wasn't enjoying my family. I was on that hamster wheel, man, trying to make up for lost time, and if being in the hospital, if and going through that, if that taught me anything, it's that life is short. Life is short, and don't get me wrong. Do your work. You got to do work. You got to have goals. Plan like you're going to live forever, but live every day like it's your last.
That's right.
So.
Well, let me get to some more. That was touching there. Let me get to another thing. So Andy Foster, our boss, is telling me you're a professional referee now in the MMA world. And you were a referee in Camel, right?
Yeah. So judge.
So with you MMA guys, you fighters, some of them tend to complain, well, the referee don't know, the referee. You got an experienced man here that actually knows how it is to be fighting, you know? And you have your first show win?
Well, I've been judging for CSAC for probably close to a year now.
Okay.
And actually next month will be my first show where I'm going to referee some fights as well. So
Awesome. Congrats.
Extremely excited about that. Andy and CSAC, they certainly made me pay my dues.
Yes.
You'd think I'd get moved up quick just because I was in the UFC, but no, I spent 5 years in Camo. Yeah, just about 5 years, judging and reffing amateur.
Mike Beltran speaks highly of you.
Yeah.
I talked to them both.
I did Herb's course and then, did hundreds of fights over those 5 years before making the shift. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did, because nobody can say I got moved up quick. Nobody can say I didn't pay my dues. And as far as I'm concerned, I've continued to grow and develop because
and you can only keep learning, right?
Because judging and refereeing are skills. They are separate skills than fighting. Just because you're a good fighter doesn't make you a good coach. Just because you're a good coach doesn't make you a good fighter. Just because you're good at both those things doesn't make you a good referee or judge.
Exactly.
They're all different skills. So it gave me the time and the confidence, to move up and start working. I've judged several Bellators. I think my last one, I had the honor of judging the main event of the last Bellator that I did. It's for me. Not only does it kind of keep me embedded in the sport that I love, that I dedicated my life to, but I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Yeah, exactly. I really couldn't, and. To be perfectly honest, I don't understand why more retired fighters don't choose this as a path.
Oh yeah, I agree. And with that said, Chris, before we close, tell us about your gym. I see you have some design gloves here, huh?
Yeah. So these are some gloves that I designed, and I'll be honest, I stole all my designs from all the coolest gloves that I like.
That's right.
The foam is very.
Who's gonna tell Chris anything about stealing it? You know what I mean?
The foam is very similar to a winning glove. It's softer on the outside. It's got a little denser in the middle, but it's not hard like a cheaper glove. And then what I did is this is mesh and the thumb is not connected. So if I can grab.
Oh, okay.
I can hold if I'm tie clenched. So. It's not really a boxing glove as much as this is a training glove for boxing, Muay Thai, MMA. A lot of times in here we do, if you're training MMA, you do boxing but takedowns. Mm-hmm. Very hard to get a takedown or very hard to lock your hands together with the glove where the thumb is attached, but this is no problem. I can still grab and it's still a 16-ounce glove. And then what I did is, doubled up this in part so you can kind of ratchet this down for your wrist support. So it's two pieces instead of just one. The only thing better would be a lace up, but let's be honest, lace ups take a lot of time when you're in practice. Right. So it's got.
Tell the fans how can they get these gloves?
Well, these are the prototype right here. If you guys follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, everything.
And what is it?
The Chris Leben MMA on Instagram. By the way, since I just put that out there, if anybody who's struggling with addiction or anything like that and you want to reach out to me, DM me. I will give you the best advice I know. And for any reason, if anybody messages me, I will directly message you back. As long as you're not fucking around.
That's right.
As long as it's a serious question. If you don't get an answer back from me, that's because you're probably asking me something stupid. But.
Big dummy. Well, with that said, Chris, I just want to thank you for coming on. I'm grateful. Before we go, I heard this big rumor that you're going to be entered into the Hall of Fame. I'm spilling the beans, guys.
Is this a rumor for real?
Hey, I'm hearing from big time people.
Listen,
You're
man,
bro.
hey,
and
hey.
props to you. You deserve it. You've brought me at many parties at my house. Watching you, it was fun. So you deserve it, in my opinion.
Well, I'm not there yet. You know what
So
I'm saying?
when it comes,
so
put it out there. You know what I mean? You could go to these dinners when they when they enter them into the Hall of Fame, guys. You just got to find out the date, and I'll definitely give you updates. I spilled the beans.
It would be a massive honor. I don't know if there's a voting, but if you guys want to vote,
there you go.
I would be very
now
grateful.
You're already voted in. Should I keep talking and then get myself sat down?
Yeah, be careful, man. I don't. You know, it's like when somebody says you're going to kick this guy's ass. It's the last thing I want to hear.
Yeah.
Don't make me think I'm better than him. Don't make me think I'm good. I want my opponent to be the biggest, baddest dude ever, because that
I heard it from the horse's mouth, so I'll leave it at that. Anthony.
Gives me drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, lastly, listen, if you were on vacation or you live in San Diego, my gym is in Pacific Beach, a beautiful beach community here.
Beautiful gym, guys.
The training center, you know, you can check us out on all the social media. If you type in Chris Leben Training Center search, will pop right up. If you want to drop in for a day or you want to become a member and train, it's not just me. I've got Barrett Yoshida is my jiu-jitsu coach, who multiple time world champion, ADCC Hall of Famer, so world-class MMA, boxing, and jiu-jitsu as well.
Well, again, guys, thank you, Chris, for coming on, and we'll have him on again. Chris Leben.
Right on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.